Back in February, I decided to listen to and review every single record in my husband's massive collection. I'd been living with this collection for about 9 years, and had probably listened to only about 30 all the way through of the 1,500 or so. I'd always loved that I'd married into this record collection. The idea of exploring all of this music had always been at the back of my mind, but I guess it was just something about that cold February evening that gave me the idea. Maybe it was the cabin fever of an especially long winter, or the isolation of having just moved to a New Jersey suburb from Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Whatever it was, there was enough propulsive creative force for me to create a Tumblr the following day called My Husband's Stupid Record Collection. I started this project as a way to share what I was doing with friends on Facebook. I didn't think anyone would read it. But that doesn't mean I didn't hope people would read it. There was always a part of me that hoped that more than a handful of people will read something that I wrote. But after a lot of experience putting stuff out there and not having anyone notice it, I had low expectations.
Welcome to the Nexus Hi-Fi Test Record in real stereo.
As a woman, you learn to keep your expectations low. There are some things that your brain will anticipate and analyze whether you like it or not. Like, am I up for dealing with catcalling if I wear this skirt? Or will I be safe walking home from somewhere after a certain hour? I'll admit that I've changed out of short shorts worn around the house when I have to run to the store for some milk, because it's just easier. And that still doesn't guarantee a harassment-free trip to the store. Low expectations inoculate you from disappointment. Doing a blog that I expected no one to read, I did not overanalyze or try to anticipate a reaction when I started my project. I never wondered, if I write about music, will it be considered sexist? If I write about my husband's record collection instead of my own, am I reinforcing harmful gender stereotypes? I did not ask myself those questions before starting my blog. And in retrospect, not only do I think that I shouldn't have needed to, but I'm glad that I didn't. Those questions feel just as bad as thinking, is it safe to wear this outside of my house? I didn't anticipate these questions, but a group of women writers used my blog to pose them.
Now, let's see how your new hi-fi system performs.
For reasons I still can't discern, the blog I started as a writing exercise quickly went some pale shade of viral. People told me that they enjoyed the way I wrote about music. Unfamiliar with any rules about how to write about music, I wrote in an unfiltered stream of consciousness style about what I was listening to. If it made me think of a memory or a different time or place, or feel a strong emotion, I'd write about it. I discovered the albums as I wrote about them. People who were familiar with the bands I was writing about told me it was a refreshing way to think about music they loved. People like me, who were not familiar with a band, would tell me that one of my reviews made them go out and buy an album. They discovered the new music right along with me. Soon after the popularity grew, those same low expectations that governed my behavior were suddenly applied to my blog and to me. Some women assumed that the only reason men read my blog was because they thought it was cute that a woman was writing about music as an outsider. They thought I was playing a character pretending to be naive instead of just being honest. That it was really unfair that female writers on the inside of the music industry were not taken seriously. But when an outsider came along and claimed she didn't know what she was doing, men loved her. What I heard wasn't the criticism about what I was doing, but assumptions about who I was as a person and what kind of scheme I had up my sleeve to get a book deal. Didn't she think about the gender politics behind starting a project like this? No, I hadn't. Not for a minute. I was cushioned by low expectations. I thought no one would even notice this blog, much less question the whole premise, question my ideas, question my work, in a way that no one would question a man's. I hadn't anticipated this happening, but I understood it right away. This is why it's so hard for women to take chances and put ideas out there with confidence. This is why women are statistically less likely to raise their hand in classes and statistically more likely to be interrupted. It was a familiar feeling. Once I got past the assumptions people made about me, I started to hear the bigger conversation, the root of the assumptions made by women. It had to do with their personal experiences as writers and musicians, and record collectors and DJs. They were all of these things. and they were also women, which meant it hadn't been easy for them. When I thought about it that way, it made me mad for them, not at them.
This next passage will reveal the lower range.
Even when you spend 32 years as a woman, even anticipating the worst, you can still be unaware of certain privileges. I'd never been a part of the world I was dipping my toes into. I never thought about how joining it as a woman would feel. If men really like my project only because it reinforces their notions of women as outsiders in music, then that sucks. But that doesn't mean I should stop what I'm doing. There is space to say, this woman is trying it this way, and it's great. We're doing it this way, and these are the shitty problems we have. There's a space for a formal critical analysis of the work of Black Sabbath, and for me to say it sounds like a trip through space to the hell planet. I started to look at this controversy with 2 points of view. Firstly, it's important to remember that women should be free to try whatever they want to try. It sounds simple, but just as women shouldn't be excluded from typically male-dominated pursuits, they also should not feel guilty for liking musicals or ballet or Danielle Steele. I'm not going to pretend that I like speed metal because I'm worried about perpetuating a stereotype. It took me until my early 20s to stop pretending to like things for someone's, usually male, approval. The second perspective focused on the unfair treatment of female writers on the inside of the music industry. The bar women have to clear to be taken seriously writing about anything, especially music, is so much higher than for men. My blog got people talking about this problem. And because women are so used to those pesky low expectations of men, and even other women, it was easy for them to assume that we weren't on the same side. If I was getting male attention, I was probably doing something sexist or intellectually stupid.
Can your stylist track this kind of challenging tonal range?
I knew I wasn't, but some female readers thought I was, because it confirmed the narrative they had lived. I was getting shit on by women for not getting shit on by men. I didn't have to spend years earning the music critic bona fides like they did, because the appeal of my work was that I didn't have them. My critics have learned to expect the worst. It's part of being a woman. And when I didn't receive the worst, they saw the worst in me. But since I'm a woman, I've learned to do that too. I've also learned to stop caring about what others might assume about me. So now it's June, and I'm doing the same thing I was doing back in February. I'm trying to keep my unfiltered, genuine voice in my writing, but I'm also not shying away from talking about gender if it comes up in the music I'm listening to. In fact, it always feels pretty exciting to talk about gender. There's a part of me that wonders what the people who called my blog sexist would think if they read my post before and after the controversy. I can admit that it was in the back of my head when I was writing about how the Raymond Pettibone cover of an SST compilation reinforces the fact that we live in a rape culture. I took my time on that post, not only to think about how that cover was making me feel, but also reach out to an expert, a women's studies professor who wrote her dissertation on women in punk. I'm hoping to take this higher and use it to make myself a better writer. In a way, it's been a blessing. And how cool is it to say to a group of people who wanted to silence me that I'm not doing anything wrong, and that I'm not going away. I dream that one day the folks who decided I was a traitor to all womanhood will sit down one day and read my blog as a complete body of work without cherry-picking it for sentences that confirm their biases about me. I hope they understand that I sound like a novice because I have a tenuous relationship with music geekery. To be honest to my experience, I have to expose myself in a way that still makes me a little uncomfortable. I hope that maybe, taking all of that into consideration, they will come around on what I'm doing. But I'm keeping my expectations low.